everybody, welcome back to my channel. This is going to be my June reading wrap up. We are officially halfway through the year. If you want to see kind of my book tag wrap up, then you can go and check it out. That's on my channel already. But this is just about the books that I read in June and the ones that I hope to read in July. This was a really weird reading month for me. I got through I think 12 books, but I only finished one physical book. All the rest of them were audiobooks, so it was kind of weird. I've been reading through War and Peace, which I know I keep mentioning a lot and I still have yet to get that video up, but I promise it is coming. I'm about halfway through, and while reading through War and Peace, I wanted to feel like I was actually still getting through some books. So a lot of what I read or listened to this month were just quick, easy to get into, super fun audiobooks that I could listen to while I was doing other stuff and feel like I was still getting through some books while working my way through War and Peace. Plus I had lots of like organizing and stuff to do with moving, so I listened to a lot of audiobooks this month. I'm gonna scoot a little to the side since most of what we need to do is going to be up on here. Let me pull up my Goodreads to make sure I don't miss any of them. And I'm just going to talk about these all at once, even though there were some that I read in between these books. But I read or listened to the entire Sisters Grimm series. My brother came up and visited me for a week. And while he was here, we were like driving around doing stuff. And so we figured we'd start an audiobook together. And so this is the book we chose. These are all a reread for me. When I was probably elementary school, I read through the whole series and I loved them. So I thought I'd show them to my younger brother, and then I just forgot how good they are. And even after he went home, we got through about the first book and a half together, and then I just binge listened to the rest of them on my own. But if you've never heard of the Sisters Grimm's series, basically the idea of the book is you have the Brothers Grimm, right, who wrote all the original, or like a lot of the original fairy tales. Their great, however many great grandchildren are Sabrina and Daphne Grimm. And they're kind of at the beginning of the book. Their parents have gone missing. They are in the foster care system and they are getting taken to live with someone who is claiming to be their grandma. And they're like, we've been in the system for a year and a half. How are you finding our grandma who we were told was dead? And so they get sent to live with this lady, and she is basically telling them that she lives in a place where fairy tale characters are real, and she is a fairy tale detective. And so you get thrown into this whole world where you're living in this town that all of the fairy tale characters exist as real people, and the Grimms are the detectives. And so they get roped into this whole world. And it's just super fun. The books all range from like 5 to 6 hours on Audible. And so they're super easy to just listen through in the day, especially if you're like me and have stuff that you're just like doing around at home. For being a kid's book, I think they're actually still so fun and have such a good plot even as an adult. Obviously, they're not gonna be like the most crazy, complicated, high fantasy type of a book, but they have a pretty good plot for being a kid's book. I think they're quite interesting. There's a lot of character development from book 1 to book, I always forget how many there are, to book 9. There's a lot of character development. There's some good plot twists. I actually think these are super well done, even for adults in that. Most of them I just gave a 4-star rating. I don't know, I was having a hard time like differentiating between them. I will say I think my 2 favorite out of the series are the Ever After War and the Council of Mirrors, which are books 7 and 9, and those ones I did give 4.5 stars. But overall I really enjoyed them all. They're super fun to go through quickly, really quick. If you have kids and you need a book to read with your kids that is also interesting for you, these would be really great options. I did listen to them on audiobook, but I would recommend the physical books because from what I remember, they have illustrations in them. And so you get all of these fun little graphics and illustrations. I don't know who the illustrator is. Oh, here we go. Peter Ferguson. is the illustrator. But yeah, they've got lots of like fun pictures, and it just makes the world easier to imagine. So I would recommend the physical books, but I also did really like the narrator. I will say the narrator on the audiobooks isn't as good at girl voices, but he does a really good job at lots of the crazy characters, right? You have animals that need to have a voice and lots of stuff going on with all the fairy tales, so super fun. But yeah, that's the Sisters Grimm series, all 9 books of it. I highly recommend. I really enjoy them, and I would also just in general highly recommend going and rereading some of your childhood favorites, because it's just a good time. They're just fun, and it's super helpful to listen to books like that when you are reading a heavy classic. In the midst of listening to those, me and my husband together listened to Close to Death, which is the newest release in Hawthorne and Horowitz series. This one's number 5. If you don't know what this series is about, basically you have Anthony Horowitz, who is the author of the book, is also a character in the books, and he's approached by a Detective Hawthorne, and he asks Anthony to basically follow him around and write about the cases he's solving. And so you kind of follow that one. This series has gone downhill for me. I really liked book 1. This one I only gave 3 stars. I just feel like we're not getting enough information or character development for me to really stay intrigued. Like, you really don't know that much about the Hawthorne character, and there's been so many things that are hinted at, and that's what gets me to keep coming back to the books. But I'm starting to get frustrated. Like, we're 5 books in, and I don't know hardly anything more about Hawthorne than we did in book 1. So it's getting a little too dragged out in my opinion. This one also did something a little bit different, where instead of following Hawthorne around on the case, he's like writing about an old case, and it just wasn't as intriguing. I don't know, you just didn't get much of the Hawthorne character, and I feel like really that's what I'm there for. Like, I want to know all of these crazy mystery backstory things that we keep hinting at with Hawthorne, but we're just not getting them, and it's starting to get frustrating. I also feel like the first book was the cleanest, and then we kind of went downhill for a minute. This one was better as far as swearing goes, but yeah, I'm starting to lose interest. I think I'll probably give it one more book. It sounds like there are like 12 books planned, which is just insane. Like, we're just dragging things out way too much at this point. So I'll probably give one more go, and if I still don't like it after that, I think I'll be out. But yeah, that's Hawthorne and Horowitz. I liked the first one, but I feel like you could just read the first one and stop. And then the most recent audiobook that I finished was The Secret of Chimneys by Agatha Christie. I finally got to an Agatha Christie this year. I don't know why this keeps happening, where I get to June and I realize I haven't read a single Agatha Christie book, so then I hurry and find one. But this is one that was on Audible Plus catalog. There's only a couple that are on the Plus catalog that I haven't already read. So that's why I picked this one. It was kind of random, but I need to get it so I can add it to my Agatha Christie shelf. But Secret of Chimneys is one of the Superintendent Battle ones, and I feel like he pops up here and there pretty much every time she needs a Scotland Yard detective. He kind of shows up. This one was a little weird though, because it's a Superintendent Battle one, but I don't feel like he's the main investigator. Like, there's this more amateur guy that gets roped in, and he ends up doing the majority of the investigating that we see, and Superintendent Battle just kind of is there to add some officialness to it. But basically the plot of this book, if I can think of a good way to explain it, you have this guy named Anthony Cade who basically picks up all sorts of illegal-ish odd jobs, and I guess he'd be a grifter, but his friend comes to him and says, hey, I have this manuscript that got sent to me in the mail from this guy I met forever ago, and I will get £1,000 if I deliver it to the publishing house in London by a certain day. They're in, like, I don't know, some other country at this point. But he's got an expedition plan to something else, and so he doesn't want to have to do that. So Anthony Cade takes the manuscript, pretends to be his friend, and goes to try and deliver it. But it turns out there's a whole conspiracy and lots of crazy stuff surrounding this manuscript. So then he gets roped into it as it goes in Agatha Christie books, somebody ends up dead, and that's when Superintendent Battle gets called in, and then they start kind of working together. This is, I feel like, what would happen if Agatha Christie tried to write a Western. And you probably wouldn't think that if you hadn't read a lot of Westerns, but I grew up reading a lot of Louis L'Amour. My dad's super into that author. And just the character of Anthony Cade is just such a Western character. Like, just something about his vibe, and it gets less as you go through the rest of the book, but just something about the vibe of that character is such a, like, main character in a Western. He's just, like, kind of iffy on whether he's following the law or not, kind of takes things into his own hand, doesn't really care if he ends up in danger. At one point he, like, takes a gun from someone, he gets into, like, a knife fight thing. There's even a part where he, like, wakes up because he notices something's, like, off, and that's just such a Western thing. Like, I don't feel like any other books really have this thing where just the main character just has this, like, innate sense of danger, or, like, he can just tell someone's in his room. And so I really enjoyed it. It was kind of random, but I thought it was actually super fun. So that's that one. It's definitely up there in the Agatha Christie books that I like. I gave this one 4 stars. It's not, like, my all-time favorite, and I will say I think it got hindered a little bit because I listened to it in an audiobook. I don't think that worked as good for me. I felt like I had a hard time paying attention fully, so I kind of got lost. I might have enjoyed it more if I'd read it physically, but I still thought it was really good. And then the last book that I finished in June, I actually have the physical of. This is Alcatraz versus the Evil Librarians, book 1 by Brandon Sanderson. This is definitely a kid's book. We started listening to this back in April with my family when we were in southern Utah. We got about halfway through and then stuff happened. We ended up never getting together to sit down and finish listening to it. So I decided to just pick up the physical book because we already owned it and just read the rest. So it literally took me like an hour and a half to read the second half of this book. It's way faster if you read it, in my opinion, but the audiobook's good too. I think especially if you have like middle school boys that don't really like to sit down and read, the audiobook's a really good option. But basically, this book, you're following Alcatraz Smedry, who is an orphan, and then all of a sudden he gets wrapped up into this world where librarians are like evil. You're living in like the Americas and stuff, and like our normal world is like this super highly controlled area by the librarians where we're getting told all of these lies, and there's all these other extra continents that don't exist on our maps that are not under library control, and there's like this whole war going between them. It's kind of hard to explain, but it's also a very interesting narrator style where he's very much so in it and he interrupts a lot, and I don't know. Personally, I feel like that kind of takes me out of it. I think a lot of people see that as a pro. I don't know. Some people I think really like the interrupting funny thing. I thought it was alright. It's definitely funny. Don't go into this expecting like your typical Brandon Sanderson high fantasy. That is not what this book is. This is like a funny, goofy kids book. So I think if you go into it with the right lens, it is a really fun book. They're nice, just like palate cleanser, pick them up and go. They're funny enough, and it's a good enough plot and world and stuff that it's interesting as an adult, but it's also interesting as a kid. So again, this would be a great one if you want to read a book with your kids and you want it to still be interesting. But yeah, I gave it 3.5 stars. It's not like my all-time favorite book ever, but it was a good time. I also think it did not help that I took like a 2-month break in the middle of it. That kind of took me out of the whole story. So the next one, I am going to continue the series. I think the next one I will try and read all the way through and not take a break. But those are all the books that I finished in June. So now let's talk about my July TBR. The first one, and I know I keep putting this on my TBR, but I am determined to finish this month, is War and Peace. I'm about halfway through. I am fully annotating this for a video, which is part of why it's taking me so long. I am going to finish this month. If I do not finish this month, everybody needs to yell at me or something. But I am determined. It's happening by the end of July. The reading vlog will be up. I am committing to that. This needs to happen. I need to just sit down and just really focus and make this a priority. So my TBR is a little bit shorter for this month because I am determined to make this happen and be done with it. The other books that I really want to read this month are Children and Blood and Bone, Children of Virtue and Vengeance, and then Children of Anguish and Anarchy. This is the Children of Orisha trilogy. The third book came out right at the end of June, and I haven't gotten it yet because I pre-ordered it and it got shipped to my parents' house. So I just need to get that from them. I'm gonna get it from them this weekend. I do want to reread the first two books before I go into the third one, just because it's been a while since I read them and I want to make sure I fully remember everything that's going on and I'm just like back into the world. I probably will film a reading vlog of these ones as well, and then including the last book, which I'm so excited for. Book 2 left off on quite the cliffhanger, and it's been probably close to 6 months since maybe even longer than that, since I read this book. And so I have been very excited to read the next one. So these will be happening very soon. I don't know if I'm gonna wait till I'm done with War and Peace. We'll see. But I'll probably have a reading vlog including these two and the new one, all in that video. And then I have a few other books that I'm hoping to get to. I'm not gonna officially add them to my TBR because that's a lot of reading just in that. And they're for a video that I'm hoping to film this month, but it kind of spoils bits of the video. I feel like it makes the video less fun if I tell you what they are. So I'm gonna not talk about those. But I did think I did touch a little bit on audiobooks and some of the audiobooks I might try and listen to. I have a whole list on my notes. I don't know if that's gonna, yeah, of ones that I think are potentials. I need to look into a few of them a little bit more. Right now I have actually started the, oh, what's the name of it? Happenstance Found. It's the first book in the Books of Umber series. Once again, this is a book that I read as a kid that I really liked. So I have started that one. That'll be the first one that I finish. As far as other ones that I think would be interesting, there is one more Agatha Christie that I haven't read yet that I might try and get to. We'll see how I'm feeling on that one. That one's The Man in the Brown Suit. There's also one that I've seen on there quite a few times that is called Fred the Vampire Accountant. It's a whole series, so I might test that one out. We'll see. There's a couple Frida McFadden's. We'll see how I'm feeling. I might save those for more like fall. But yeah, I don't have a ton of like exactly what I'm gonna listen to next, but those are some of them that are kind of higher on my list. But I'm gonna go ahead and wrap up this video. I've talked a lot. There's not a ton going on with my TBR for the next month, but it should be good. I need to finish War and Peace, so I'm not gonna go overboard with how many books I add. But thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you got some recommendations out of it. If you have any recommendations for me, please leave them down below. I always appreciate more recommendations. But thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.